My experience of Rosary in a Year, day two, was one of frustration. I felt I couldn't focus, and I just couldn't. At first, it was because I was thinking too much of how I'll be making this video. My mind was abuzz, oh, I should note down my reactions to this. Oh, that's funny. That reminds me of this. I should remember to put that in the video. Oh, I can relate to that. I can't focus, so I can't forget that reaction. So I gotta remember that. I gotta remember. And I was basically brainstorming script ideas and things to include in my reaction without listening enough to actually have an experience. And it was then that I realized that these videos I make, this quote unquote reaction series, isn't about giving my reaction or review of the Rosary in a Year podcast as much as it is about sharing my experience with it and how each day is impacting me. I'm not here to speak about the podcast show like I'm some expert critic in the Rosary, like St. Dominic himself, critiquing and speaking about how everything Father Mark Mary is saying makes sense according to this and that theological belief or idea or document. No, right? I'm here kind of like a student. I am a student, literally, in every sense, both in a viewer of this show, but also I'm of student age. And I'm here simply sharing and documenting the movements in my soul and the things I experience as I listen to each day's episode. To share the adventures Jesus takes me on through this series, the places I go in mental and imaginative prayer, the things I learned there, and the experiences I have there. It's an adventure I feel called to share because while I may be exploring the depths of my inner world, in the depths of our being is where Jesus is, and he's present in every one of us. And I mean, how cool is that? Like, in each of our unique interior worlds, Jesus is waiting to take us on our own unique adventure. And they're all unique, and yet they're similar in that they all, in those adventures, we're always with Jesus. And I want to share that, I want to share that, and I hope I can, in sharing that, create a space for others to share their own unique adventure, because it's just so cool, and it's wonderful to see how Jesus is working uniquely in each of us. So now I found myself telling myself, or rather realizing, all I have to do is let myself experience this. Like, I have to experience this day two, Rosary in a Year, day two. And it was at that point that the mental prayer began. Father Mark Mary told us to visualize Jesus in the throne room of our hearts, surrounded by courts of angels. As I imagined a throne room, like the ones in fantasy movies, yes, like the one at Cair Paravel, I imagined a bewildered Lucy looking around the throne room at the courts of angel animals in awe. I mean, they weren't animals, but they were there. There were sparkles and spires and grandeur and red carpets and golden warm light. And my eyes went to the throne where the brightest being in the world sat and passed over him and continued looking around. Yes, it was then that the distractions came, that no matter how much Father Mark Mary talked about the need to look at Jesus, and that I pictured the King looking at me with so much love and approval and warmth and waiting and patiently waiting for me to look at him, he was seeing me look all around in awe at his throne room, and yet I never looked at him. I never looked at him. I mean, imagine going to such lengths to invite someone to your throne room and they don't even look at you. And I wanted to look at him. I wanted to obey what Father Mark Mary was saying, like to look at Jesus, but I couldn't. For shame, yes, he was too bright for me, too perfect for me. I did not deserve to be gazed upon with such a look of love. It was difficult for me. It was uncomfortable. Not like but it was weird, right? I don't know, maybe some of you experienced it too. It was hard for me, It was like the pull of the world and everything apart from him. Yes, everything apart from him was easy to look at. Everything but him, though he shone more brightly than all. Upon him, more obviously, one's gaze should fall, right? Like, yet I was looking at everything in the room but him. And it was then that the distractions came. again. I blocked my bedroom door so I wouldn't be interrupted, but suddenly it was like everyone in my household was trying to talk to me. I felt at my door like my mom or one of my dogs had just tried the handle and failed to get in. My brother trying my door and shouting through that he'd bought my vegetables. Clatter and commotion like the world was ending, as tends to happen the moment I tried to focus on something in my house. Father Mark Mary telling us to look at Jesus, and I'm like, bro, I can't. How can I? Like, how? As wonderful as he is, how can I look at him and get lost in his gaze right now when so many things demand my attention here on earth? Like, is it really okay? It can't be okay, because I have a responsibility to them. And when I don't pay them attention, they feel neglected. And am I not neglecting them, or what's happening? I find myself getting angry at the persistent request of Father Mark Mary to look at Jesus, to speak to him, while outside my inner world and outside in the world and outside my very door, all the earth is demanding my attention. There's never a moment of peace, not in my house, not in my life, or so it feels sometimes. Not a moment to detach. Feels like I don't have the permission to. I don't have the right to. And in that frustration, I turn to the Lord and I say, is it not you? As if I'm not addressing the King of the universe and my sovereign master. I'm like, is it not you who has led me to understand that it is in my serving my neighbor that I serve you? Is it not you who has told me through your pastors that I should not be heavenly conscious and earthly useless? How am I to detach from the world when it demands of me my attention like this? When I am to serve it, When my good brother or mother, upon hearing no response while knowing I'm inside, shall take offense and get upset that I'm ignoring them. I have no peace then. I must be at their beck and call lest they take offense. Not just their offense I fear, but in offending them I fear I'm offending you, for you have sent me to serve them. So how can I focus on you if only I could get away? If only I could get away to a place where I can just focus on you. And yes, I feel responsible for my family. I must be available to them. But at what cost? If my focus on them costs me my attention to Jesus, is it worthwhile? Is it efficient? For if I don't know Jesus, if I have not encountered him and his look of love for me, then what do I have to offer them? How can I love if I don't stand to the eyes of he who loved first? How can I love, like truly love, if I don't stand to the eyes of love himself? After all, I can only love them with the love I myself have received. I can only love because I myself am loved, and loved to overflowing. And if my focus on them prevents me from meeting the loving gaze of Jesus, if I ignore Jesus because I am looking at them, what does that say about my heart? Who really reigns as king and center of my heart? So in that, it becomes apparent to me that an idol of mine may very well be my family's approval. Perhaps I seek my family's approval over the loving gaze of God, as if my family's approval could ever satisfy my needs, my real human needs and purpose. And it's because so often this has flown over my head, this character flaw, I guess, because I have used the excuse of obeying the commandment of loving my neighbor, that I have failed to obey the first part of loving God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, all your soul. And the second is like the first, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The precedent for loving neighbor in the old law meant loving first yourself. In other words, self-care. And Jesus takes it further. He says, a new commandment I give unto you, that you shall love even as I have loved you. But under the new law, the precedent for loving your neighbor is to encounter the love with which Jesus himself has loved us. So now my desires to be alone with God is reignited. I desire to meet his gaze and hold it, to be absorbed in his loving look and completely unaware of the world around me. Yes, to be alone in solitude of God, to be dead to the world and alive to Christ, as St. Paul once put it. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Is my inability to keep my eyes on Christ a sign of dangerous attachment to this world and to my family? But Jesus says, he who loves father, mother, brother, etc. more than me is not worthy of me. And Today I had the opportunity of seeing that those words were recorded in time and now brought to mind to me, for me, to remind me of what's most important and to save me. So we thank God for clarity and ask for His guidance as we learn to value attachment to Him more than the things of the world and the approval of people in this world. And well, that's enough about me. What was your experience with Rosary-in-a-Year Day 2? Were you able to look Jesus in the eyes, and what did you find? What did you see there? What did you find there? What did it feel like? I'd love to hear your experiences too. Please let me know in the comments below. Take care.